Please pray with me. O Holy One, take our minds and think through them. Take our hands and work through them. Take our mouths and speak through them. And take our hearts and set them on fire for your love's sake. Amen. Well, welcome back, each and every one of you. It is so wonderful to look out on this sanctuary and see so many of you back from your summer breaks. I hope that those breaks brought you joy. I hope you spent lots of time with friends and family. I hope if being by the beach is your thing, you spent all the time on the beach. That's not really my thing. Or a lake, or wherever it is you find your joy, your rest, and your restoration. And I equally hope that you're excited to be back for the fall. If you have kids or grandkids, I hope you can see the excitement on their faces as they start a new school year. Whatever lies in store for you this fall, I hope it just fills you with eager anticipation. However, as we on the staff were thinking this past summer about a sermon series to kick off the fall, we were trying to discern what people might be feeling now or what might be going on in the times that we have to respond to. And so we looked around and couldn't help but realize that in spite of all the rest and relaxation and the joy of the summer and the excitement of the fall, we have to admit that we do live in troubled times. After all, it's hard to ignore when you open the paper in the morning or you pull up your phones and get your news alerts about all the things that are going on, which probably cause you inward pain. You see internationally the persistence of wars in Ukraine and Gaza and the immense suffering there. And this hurts us. We see international troubles. We see the rise of an increasingly militant China. We see the changing of international alliances. We see difficulties in international trade and sorting out what that means. Domestically, of course, there's a lot of anxiety. Anyone can name that. We see our political divisions, which aren't getting any less by the moment. We see the thorny issue of immigration and how we're supposed to deal with it. If you're like me, it's painful to see the images of men in masks taking people off the streets within our country. We see issues with crime, the impending occupation of certain cities and the tensions around there, the economy. We are indeed in troubled times. And perhaps even your own life, you're dealing with troubled times. After all, even though this is Metro West Boston, all's not well. Maybe you have people in your families that are going through hard times. Maybe at your place of work, there's an issue of stress. Maybe economic stuff is weighing on your soul. Whatever it might be, we're in a time of trouble. And so, for churches to be relevant, we have to address the moment. And so that's what Christine, Zach, and I plan to do in the weeks ahead. Now, one thing that I've said many times, and I will never tire of saying, is that the answer to our deepest ills in society is precisely our Christian faith. If there's anything that we need now, it is the ability to hold on to goodness, to proclaim the omnipotence of good, to proclaim the importance of love, and to feel connected to the divine. We need that. That makes us human. Our Christian faith also helps give us perspective on what's going on. Christianity has been around for 2,000 years. It has persisted through 2,000 years. It has supported people through 2,000 years. And the reality is, as tough as times might seem now, there have been times in the past that have been far worse. And Christianity has helped people through those times. That perspective, that history is important. And also our Christian faith gives us purpose, direction, motivation, meaning. in life, something that we all yearn for. And so the question is, how do we get this? How do we get these benefits of the Christian faith? And the answer, of course, is to deepen and nurture our own faith. And to have a correct version, a correct idea in our minds about what faith actually looks like and how it can help us. Faith is not the same as belief. Belief, you can say, I believe certain things. I believe that Jesus is the Son of God. I believe that an omnipotent God exists that controls everything. Or I don't believe that. You can believe many things, but merely assenting to a propositional statement is not faith. Faith is far more than that. Faith is a centered act of your whole personality. When you are someone who has faith, it's something that affects you spiritually, mentally, physically. It's something that shapes your actions, shapes the way you orient yourself towards the world. Faith is a centered act of your whole personality. This is one thing I've talked about before, faith as faithfulness, faith as loyalty, faith as having an ultimate concern, something that actually is your lodestone in life that centers everything else in your life. That is what faith is. And people can have faith in many things. Again, as I've said before, people can have faith that the Patriots are the most important thing in their lives, and that this year with Mike Vrabel, they might actually make the playoffs. Potentially we'll see the beginning of that at 1 o'clock today. I know I'll be watching. But as much as I love the Patriots, they are not for me a center of value, my ultimate concern. For some people, again, it's success. Your whole life is shaped around your need to succeed, or your need to get this or that material good. Sometimes your center of value, your ultimate concern is your political party or a political leader, regardless of who that might be. But one of the things that Christian theology says is when you put your faith in things of this world and things that are finite, eventually that faith disappoints you. Faith in success, making that your ultimate concern, eventually will disappoint you. Same thing with materialism, same thing with a sports team or a political party or anything else. The goal as Christians is to put our faith in God, in something that is eternal and something that persists, the very ground of our being and source of love. And there's certain marks of this. This is where things get a little tricky, though. You see, you can't say, I have faith, this is my ultimate concern in the divine, and then not shape your life around it. So if God is your ultimate concern, one of the things you do is you want to come and worship God. St. Augustine says that our hearts are restless until we find rest in God. If you're to have faith in God, one thing that you need to do is actually worship God. Ground yourself in God's goodness and God's love. Let that shape you in public worship. Prayer life. To wake up in the morning and give thanks for a new day. And ask for the grace to be better. To give thanks before meals, to go on walks, commune with God's incredible presence in nature, and just have that abundance and wonder suffuse you. To pray for those who are in need around you. That prayer life is a mark of faith, as is service to others. If you actually have God as your ultimate concern, you should be serving others in your workplace, in your church, in your community, in your family, even people you don't know who might be in need. These marks, worship, prayer, service, are all marks of a life of faith. So if you want to have a life of faith, the reality is you actually have to do these things. It's always good to start a year by saying, hey, by the way, come to church. Because just like an athlete, you can't expect to show up on game day and then score all the touchdowns if you don't go to practice. You can't expect to succeed in any field of endeavor, medicine, business, law, education, whatever it is. You can't expect to succeed without practicing it. The same thing is with faith. If God is your ultimate concern, if you want that, if you want what you can get out of that, it's something that you actually have to practice. And that involves worship, prayer, service. Faith. Now again, I've talked about faith a number of times this year because it's so important. But there's one aspect I haven't yet touched on that I think might be relevant for some of your lives. It is the aspect of faith as a gift of grace. Because the reality is, even though you could be well-intentioned, you're like, you know what, I love God, I love church, but then you get busy, you get caught up in other things. You actually have real priorities that come into your life. These priorities are real. And they distract you, and you realize that you've gotten distracted away from it, and then sometimes you feel that your faith is dead. You can think about it in your head, but you don't really feel it in your heart. Maybe you're someone who is involved in church, and you come to church all the time, and you just found yourself burnt out. You're like, I don't have it anymore. You know, that's a heart issue. You can find yourself lost from faith for all sorts of reasons, even with the best of intentions, which is why Protestants from the beginning have said that the first step of faith is actually grace. You actually need God to come into your life in some way to be that ground, that foundation of faith. And this is exactly what Paul is talking about in the letter to Ephesians that David just read. Now again, he uses old school language, so he says, you were dead through trespasses and sins in which you once walked. This is a whole sense of, Paul's talking about how, there's all those things in the world that distract you. And again, he's trying to encourage people that distracted you in the past. But fundamentally, you were saved by grace. All of a sudden, some aspect of God came into your life that changed you. The living presence of Christ came into your life that changed you and made you rediscover faith. Or discover it for the first time. So, for instance, perhaps you offended someone deeply who matters to you, and you heard the words, "You are forgiven." This thing had been weighing on you for a long time, and someone was able to forgive you, and in that word of forgiveness, you felt connected to God. And that's the beginning of that aspect of faith. Paul Tillich talks about being grasped by faith in those moments of grace. You are forgiven. Or perhaps you were someone who was going through a really hard time in life. You were really struggling at one of the darkest points in your life, and you've all had moments like that, and someone in your life came and was a word of grace in that life. And you felt God's presence at that time. And it changed you. This is what Paul's talking about. He says, when you're saved by grace through faith. It is that graceless action that allows you to connect with God and really experience faith, a renewed faith. Let's say you're someone who's going through grief. You lost someone very close to you in your life, and someone you might not even know from your church community sends you a note, and you open that note, and the note is, I am looking for you, I am caring for you, I am praying for you. And it hits you right in the heart. Tomorrow in this space, we will have a funeral for Gifford Metz, someone who grew up in this church who took his own life 2 weeks ago. There's nothing that I'll be able to say to Travis and Jen to relieve them of their grief in this moment. But you know what can happen and has happened? Friends can show up with casserole dishes and just say, I love you. People can show up in this worship space tomorrow and pray with them and say, I love you, I'm here for you. It doesn't take away the grief, it doesn't make it any less painful, but it does break through and show them in their lives, hey, God might still be here to help sustain me in this time. Or someone's coming out of the closet and someone says, you know what, I love you, you're okay. A moment of grace. It's those moments of grace that become the basis for rebuilding our faith or building it for the first time. And as we're at times where we're really busy, we have to remember those times and say, you know what, I remember that time of grace, I remember God's moment in my life, and I am choosing to commit to that. I am choosing to be more faithful. I am choosing to put all my chips there because that's something that I want. Those moments of grace move faith from our head to our heart, but then we have to build on them and do something with them. And I don't know about you, but I am someone who I do not want to give into the evil in the world these days. I refuse to do that, actually. I do not want to be someone who hates other people. I simply refuse to do that. I do not want to be someone who doesn't have the courage to stand up and actually stand up and love others and be the presence in this world that this world needs. I want that. I want that faith. I want that gift of faith. And even if I might not be feeling it right now, I can remember those times where I felt grace and say, listen, I'm going to commit to this. I'm going to commit to making God a center of value in my life because I want to be the type of person who is making this world better, even if it's just one person at a time, one moment at a time. That is exactly what we need in these troubled times, to remind yourself of those gracious actions in your life and then commit to a life of faith and making God a center of value. Because the alternative, either being discouraged, being holed up, being captured to hate, is something that I want no part of. You all are amazing people. You all have the opportunity to make an amazing difference in the people's lives that you interact with every day. And so as we start this new year, I invite you to recommit to a life of faith and see what amazing things can happen, especially in these troubled times.